Another big weekend of official visits coming for Boston College, a wide receiver that Boston College has to land in order for this weekend to be a success.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 network. I've been covering this team for over a decade, and I've been a host of this show for over 5 years. I am so glad that you have chosen to listen to Locked On Boston College because we are your team every day. On today's show, we're going to talk about the most under radar transfer for BC. We talked about the most important one the other day. I'll tell you who I think the most under the radar one will be. Two names from last weekend that I got my eyes still on. I'm watching them. And then this weekend, we have weekend number 3. I have the official list. And I got one name that I think is absolutely critical for BC to land in order for this to be a successful weekend. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Now, this weekend, BC is going to have a bit of a smaller group, about 8 recruits that are coming on campus. Many of them are committed recruits, so nothing wrong with that. But the big name, the name that I am watching for in this group is a wide receiver. His name is Nyqir Helton. We've talked about him on this podcast. He is from Winslow Township, New Jersey. And this is his, I believe it's going to be either his second or third official visit that he's taken. I really like this kid. And in terms of where I see BC's wide receiver board, as in like where the guys fall and who I think their priorities are, in my opinion, Nyqir Helton is near the top. I really do think this is a guy that BC is going to prioritize and really push for. He's rated a solid 86, I believe, on 247, and he's got official visits set up to Pitt and Syracuse. Now, why do I like this kid? Just watch his tape. He's athletic. He's fast. He's got good hands. He's a good route runner. He's crisp. He does everything that you want from a good, solid wide receiver. Now, does he have, A+ speed or size? He's fast. Believe me, he's a track star too. But he's not like elite fast. He's good fast. Like he's what you're looking for. And so the wide receiver position to me, BC has 2 commitments already. You have Alex Voss, who committed over April break right before I took my vacation. I remember writing him up on the plane. And you also have DJ Biggins from Connecticut. So you have 2 already. I think BC is going to go for 3, potentially 4. The class itself, the amount of wide receivers that are still available that they're looking at is getting smaller and smaller. We saw Amari Jahil from Texas. He's a speedy wide receiver from North Forney, Texas. He's already been here. Santana Carlos, who I've already told you a million times, I want here just so I can make stupid dad Carlos Santana jokes. He was also here. There's been a few names that I think are off their list. Like Messiah Mingo was a name that I was watching for a while, but he was supposed to visit this weekend. He's not. So I see all these names. Nyqir Helton is the one that continues to stick out to me. Winslow Township is a school Boston College has a great relationship with. Marcus Upton last year was committed. He's their safety. That's a freshman, just moved onto campus this week. He was a safety that was committed to Syracuse and flipped to Boston College. Now, he was BC's, I think, second highest rated recruit last year. So obviously, there's a good relationship between their coaching staff and BC's coaching staff. Will he, this is a battle. This is a Big East battle here. You have Syracuse. He already visited Syracuse. Helton's a quiet kid. I'm not sure if he took a visit last week because I've not been able to find any breadcrumbs on it. And I haven't talked to him in a while. He has Pitt still. He either took Pitt already or he hasn't taken Pitt. But I want to say this. Regardless, this weekend, Helton needs to commit. This is a kid from New Jersey, excellent wide receiver. Your rivals, his final three are your two big rivals, Pitt and Syracuse. You need to finish the job. You need to beat Fran Brown again, and you need to get Nyqir Helton here. I think this could. I have leaned towards BC for a while. I have not put a crystal ball in yet for Helton. I don't do a ton of those anymore because it's just, they're not the most popular thing with, recruits and the staff. So I kind of stay away from those. But out of those three schools, I do feel BC's in the driver's seat right now. Between him playing with his teammate Marcus Upton, I just feel like their relationship is really strong. He's talked really highly of Boston College, and he's making his visit. There is a lot going on out there right now that is preventing some players from making visits. There's kids committing, there's kids, changing their schedules to fit in other schools. Helton changed his schedule, but still is coming to Boston College. I think that's a big deal. I really do. I think when you're looking at what the factors that BC has going for them, they have to close this one. He's not when you're looking at, I know a lot of folks out there, you fall in love with rankings, you fall in love with star rankings. And I get that. I mean, heck, I work for 247, right? BC's a little different than that. You have a couple kids that every class that are under the radar that end up blooming. I mean, we all know the stories, right? Zay Flowers, Luke Kuechly, Mark Herzlig, up and down the line. There's been many, many players. Donovan Azaraku, he's the latest, right? Donovan Azaraku had no offers. And look at what he became. I could see Helton being that kind of player. I really could. It's interesting too, because I have kind of fallen in love with the idea of getting lots of your wide receivers from the South. I've said that on this podcast before. I feel like it's been a new revelation for BC, and you get guys like Zay Flowers from Florida, and you get, other wideouts down there that are just good, like Samaj Fleming this year and Nedrick Bolden. They're all from the South. But remember too, some of the guys that you bring in aren't for that area. Reed Harris, Montana. Lewis Bond, Illinois. Jaden Skeet, Massachusetts. So there, maybe my preferences aren't the most correct, but I want to see Nyqir Helton here. I want to see when I put out that Pauline Walnuts bat signal on Sunday. I really, for your sake, I'm hoping you're going to see a big smile on my face if it's Helton. That's a big one for me. That's someone I want to watch for. And this weekend, I think he's the biggest name, and I think he's the one Boston College has to close on. In a moment, let's go backwards again. Last weekend, 3 commitments. We know 2 of them. Who are 2 more names that I am starting to think BC is still in good shape? I'll give you some updates on some of the players that haven't committed or went elsewhere. But I'll look at 2. I'm going to focus on 2 that I think BC is still in the driver's seat for. I'll talk about those in just a moment. There's nothing like the NBA playoffs, the intensity, the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere you must experience live, and this year's matchups are already delivering. If you want in, Game Time makes it easy to get to seats, even for last-minute playoff games. Prices on the app actually drop closer to tip-off, and with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. This weekend, I used Game Time to get tickets to the Woo Sox. The Worcester Red Sox, AAA baseball. Roman Anthony was still there. People wanted seats. I went on to Game Time. I got great deals, so I got to take my family. And guess what? I ended up seeing his last game in Worcester. It was a pretty cool experience. And Game Time made it so easy for me to get my family there. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and the host of this great podcast. I enjoy doing this, and I'm so glad for all my everydayers who have made Locked On Boston College part of your everyday experience. Whether you're listening to me at the gym or doing dishes or walking your dog, I appreciate each and every one of you that have made listening to me part of your daily routine. Now, 2 recruits have already committed that we know about from last week's official visit class group that had 12 official visitors. Some of those were, again, we keep a lot of folks keep hitting me with numbers. 2 out of 12. Well, it's not really that because I think another 3 were committed anyways. So it's like 5 out of 12. But I've been reading and talking to some folks, and there's 2 names from last weekend that still keep my my radar going. That is Prin Fox and Maxwell Lovett. We're talking wide receivers here. This is why I said they could still go for 2. Maxwell Lovett just got his initial rating on 247 as an 85, which again, you're going, 85? Who cares about that? But the scouting report that went around with that is what caught my eyes about Lovett because, when people got a chance to watch him, this is a track star that ran a 10.59 100-yard dash. Absolute speedster. And, I think when you got a chance to hear what Gabe Brooks said, you're going to be able to see like this is a real deal right here. He said Maxwell Lovett was a top performer at Under Armour camp in Utah. It's easy to see why his recruitment has taken off. He caught 39 passes for 608 yards last year and 7 touchdowns. He was explosive in the drills and had a top 3 40 time. He plays with suddenness and flashes both initial quickness and top end speed. He can play in the slot or out wide and displays downfield ball tracking skills. He is will be an absolute steal for whatever program he lands at. He also talked to 247 and loved his trip. He's going to have a couple more trips. He's going to Oregon State and there was another one. I forget. Colorado State. He has Oregon State now and Colorado State. But I feel good for BC. Like good about BC. Like he loved his visit. You heard those numbers, right? 10.59 100-yard dash. Sign me up. That is burner speed right there. And I think that right there is a guy I'm watching for. Now, could he go closer? Colorado State, I'm going to be I'm going to be a little bit skeptical here because just like someone who's looking at Georgia versus Boston College, the Georgia fans are going, why would anyone go to Boston College? And I kind of feel the same way about Colorado State versus BC. Every once in a while, there'll be a weird kid that not a weird kid, but a weird situation where a kid might do that. But in this situation, I would think Lovett would go to BC. Now, Oregon State, are we back to the Power 5 again, or are we still the Power 4? Oregon State's up there too, and Oregon State's beaten BC a few times in the last couple of years. So that might be one to watch for, but, I feel good about offensive targets and their relationships with this offense because I think they see what Bill O'Brien can do. I think they see that if they want to get to the NFL, if that's their life goal, Bill O'Brien will help them get there. So I feel a little better about, Oregon State, who has they lost Jonathan Smith last year. They got a new head coach versus Bill O'Brien, who's been around for a while, has an established track record. So if the big question here is he a take at BC? I think he would be, but I'm not a fly on the wall because there's other guys that they've looked at. Maybe the staff has a big board that's different than what I see. So if BC's going for 2, do they take Helton and Lovett? Do they go for Helton and whoever's next? I'm not sure. Or is it going to be Helton and that's it? I'm not sure here. So Lovett's someone I'm watching for, but remember, I don't think BC is going to go for a class of 20. I don't get the sense they're going to go for a class of 25. The new house settlement rules are going to make things a little tougher when you have 105 roster spots, period, with preferred walk-ons and everything like that. So I'm not sure what they're going to do there. The other name from this weekend, as I mentioned, was Print Fox. Now, Print Fox is an edge rusher from Kashmir, Washington. He's taken official visits to Boise State and Boston College, and he's a few other trips set up. BC is looking; they're looking at edge rushers. Now they have two already. Number 3 is, if they have their druthers, is going to be Carter Gooden from Tabor Academy. Will they go for 4? Again, I go with these number things. Maybe there's a reason. Like Print Fox sounded like he loved the visit. There may be a reason they haven't taken him yet. Maybe they're only going to take one more, and that one more right now is Carter Gooden, if he's the guy. And if he's not, then you look at somebody else. I'm not sure. The staff is very quiet about this. So Print Fox had a great visit. Washington, I don't think BC has many players from Washington, but I thought that would be something to watch for. Now, these are the two that from last weekend that I've watched. Now, there's other recruits from the last 2 weeks that are now committed elsewhere. I feel like the Oscars, where I want to do an in memoriam, because we've talked about all these guys before, and now they're basically gone. Jaden Williams, linebacker from Ohio, went to Indiana. You saw a defensive edge rusher, defensive tackle, Jermaine Polk, go to Rutgers. You had Sawyer Jazinski, I butchered his name, but he's not going to play here, so it doesn't matter. A defensive tackle from, I think it was Minnesota, that just committed to Iowa. So there's been a few. And folks have asked me, like, that we're talking about these guys that could go here and those that are gone. Am I worried right now with all these guys? Is this like a big warning sign? I don't think so yet. There's still plenty of targets out there. Some positions are getting thinner, but it's not dire yet. I'm a big yet person. Like it could get there, but maybe it won't. You look at defensive tackles, a couple guys, Cam Mallory, he's gone. I just mentioned Sawyer Jazuski. There's a few others that they were looking at that have committed elsewhere, Jermaine Polk. But you also remember you got Deuce coming. Deuce Alafamayaya from Alaska. I butchered his name. I'm sorry, Deuce. And you have a few others that they're looking at, whether it's Alex Willis or Amir Clark. Defensive tackle's okay. Linebacker, there's where it gets a little thinner. You had Jaden Williams leave. You have I just put in a crystal ball for another linebacker, Ziggy Moore, to go to NC State. Rocky Cummings is basically it. So that may be getting a little thinner. That brings up the question, what happens after that? That's when you start to see some new offers. And you're going to probably see a few new ones come out as they try to refill some of the spots that have left. That's natural. It has nothing to do with Bill O'Brien. That's how this all works. Now, in our final segment, the other day I talked about transfers, and I told you who I thought would be the most impactful one. What about the most under the radar transfer? Who's a name that we aren't talking about that could really play a big role this year? I have one I think that really sticks out to me, and I'll talk about him in just a moment. Welcome back. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, and I want to tell you, if you're looking for a second listen after this podcast, something else to listen to on your walk, check out Locked On ACC with Kenton Gibbs and Alex Dono. They talk everything at Atlantic Coast Conference, and they get into it. It's a great podcast. It's on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Now, let's talk transfers now, because I had a whole conversation the other day about who I thought the most impactful transfer was. If you remember correctly, CBS had Tommy Matheson as their most impactful transfer for Boston College for this upcoming season. I said, I'm not sure if I see that, but maybe I'm wrong. I picked Dylan Larnigan. Now, who is a name that I'm not talking about, and Mitch isn't talking about, and the guys at Eagles Daily aren't talking about, that could be an impactful transfer, but is more under the radar. My biggest name when it comes to under the radar transfers for next year, it depends on how big under the radar you mean. But I'm going to go with defensive tackle Chris Marable Jr. Now, going into spring practice, Chuck Nadeau of Elon was the defensive tackle that I was watching most. And he was quieter than I expected him to be during camp. Didn't see a whole lot. He's new to the program, but he's coming up from FCS. Marable interests me more. We have not seen him in maroon and gold yet. But BC has two spots now on their defensive line with Cam Horsley and George Rooks gone. Now, Owen Stodmeyer, he's done a nice job in his time here. You've seen a little bit of Quan Williams. Ty Clemens is another name that I feel like could be in there. But what about Chris Marable? What if he picks up this defense at a good clip? Could he be someone who rises through that depth chart and plays significant snaps? Remember, the defensive tackle position is different than, per se, a safety that plays 85, 90 snaps a game. Well, 80 to 85, 70, hopefully less than that. Because they set what we saw last year with O'Brien is they like to cycle guys in and out. So get guys 25, 30 snaps, that could give you the chance to play Marable. There'll be 4 or 5 defensive tackles playing all the time. Will his development be enough that maybe he, going into 2026, will be one of those starting defensive tackles? I think there's a good chance that could happen. When we're talking under the radar, we really haven't talked a lot about him. We talked about the Ty Lockwoods and the Dylan Larnagans and the Rocket Wilkins and, so on and so forth. But I look at Marable and say, there's a guy that fits a real need on this roster that if he is, going to put the work in and learn this system and do all that good stuff, will we be talking about him as a playmaker when it comes to the season? And I could see that happening. I really do. Especially now that Rooks is gone. So for me, my pick is Chris Marable. Who are you picking? Put that in the comment section down below. I love when you guys get active in our YouTube comment section because, yes, I have my thoughts, but you guys have thoughts too, and I do read them, okay? So this is our Wednesday show, and I'm really excited because I want to let you guys in on something. It's the summer, and I had a thought of how I wanted to run my show. I wanted to do, on days that I could, talks about recruiting because it's a big, busy month. But I also wanted to get more guests in. And I have to be honest, I don't bring a ton of athletes on. And there's a reason for that. Sometimes they're hit or miss with how interesting it can be. I've had some really good ones. I'm not saying they're bad, but I'm not the biggest interview type of podcast. I like having conversations and a little back and forth. So that's why we had, Alex Arabella to talk recruiting. We had on Brett Ryder last week. I've had on, other guys that are just, Mike Sidley. Mitch will be back on. I'm going to have Mitchell Wolf will be on Friday. And it's not going to be me interviewing or asking questions of Mitch. We're going to talk some BC topics, and the two of us are going to go back and forth and debate a little bit. I think you're going to like that. Tomorrow's show, I'm really excited about this one. I'm going to have on Mike Galteri of Lights Camera Sports. I have known Mike for a while now, and I am fascinated with Mike. And he's a BC graduate, He worked for the basketball team. He has his thoughts of how BC should go. I'm going to get his thoughts on it. I want to hear more, and I want to know more about him too. We're going to have that on tomorrow's Thursday show, so make sure you check that out. It's going to be a busy weekend with a few more interviews, and then we get into official visit weekend again. Thank you all for listening. My name's AJ Black. Follow me on Twitter at AJ Black247. Make sure to subscribe and like wherever you get your podcast. It really does help, especially if you're listening to this on YouTube, to hit that like button. Pushes us up the algorithm. Like, you know, I want to be like when you look up BC, I want us to be right near the top because I think it helps new people find us. So do that for me. And we'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.